His name is Forrest Red Bex, and he was a character who was known all around Missoula. Originally, he was born in Dayton, Ohio, and his mother moved here in 1954, and she died when he was a toddler, and he lived with his aunt and his grandmother. He quit school in the 3rd grade. They pulled him out of school in the 3rd grade, and the only book he read was the Bible. He became he was an expert at the Bible. He knew the Bible inside out. He was a jack of all trades. When he grew up, he worked. He was a baker. He was a baker, bread baker at Eddie's Bakery, which is where Rockin' Rudy's is now. That used to be Eddie's Bakery. He also drove a truck for when they built Highway 93 out here. He had a business at the Y, reclaiming old cars and metal. He had a 3-acre business out where the Y is. He also had a mining claim down in the Garnett, and he worked that. He was a jack of all trades. He could do absolutely everything. He loved kids. He loved animals. He had 2 monkeys. He had skunk, numerous dogs and cats. He loved to take kids out on outings. He'd take them camping. The only thing with Red, though, was that he had a drinking problem. Red drank a lot. And what happened was, he also, by the way, was a boxer. And he had a boxing school for kids, his kids won the Golden Gloves. But Red's drinking got worse and worse. And he was known around town, not only for being a heavy drinker, but a fighter. He got in many fights, bar fights, and many times he was in jail. He was in and out of jail all the time. And one night in 1977, he was in jail, and a big ray of light came into his cell. And he said that an angel appeared and told him to stop drinking, stop fighting, stop running around, and spread the word of God. And that's what Red did. He became a street preacher. Red became a street preacher downtown, various spots, and he read from the Bible. And he yelled he stopped cars, and he stopped people, and he wore this, and he stood there with his Bible. And he stood there and said, "It's time to repent. I'm here to talk about love. I'm here to talk about God. I'm here to show you the way. I'm here to tell you it's about love. It's about religion. It's about the Bible. It's about what's in this book. That's the only way out. That is the way out." And he stood on the street corner. And the kids in the town loved him. He was nice to everybody. He changed. He had a complete change from what he was. The angry, fighting, drunk. And he helped people. He donated money. He gave money to whoever needed it, till he himself was broke. And he stood on that street corner. Now, the way he became, and so loved in Missoula, and such an icon, the way he became, out-of-town kids would come in, teenagers, and hassle him, pick fights. The local teenagers went and chased them, would fight his battles. Now, Rex was married 3 times. His first marriage lasted very shortly, and then he met Ida. Ida he had 3 children with. There was Rex Jr., and Harold and a girl named Eula. And he had 3 kids and his wife, and then his wife got cancer and died in 1977. Then he had his reawakening, stopped drinking, and he met Shirley Joe in 1979, and they married. And as Rex says, Shirley Joe was the best of all. She understood me. She was there for me. But Shirley Joe, unlike Rex, didn't stop drinking. And one night, coming out of a bar, she was hit by a drunk driver and killed. 1999. He sued the man. He sued the company that lent the man the car dealership. He sued the bar to no avail. But he went on. He went on with his preaching, and he could still be found downtown. Now, backing up, I'll tell you a little story. In 1974, Rex was arrested, and he was sent to Warm Springs for an evaluation. Rex got a kick out of this, so this is what Rex would tell you. They sent me to Warm Springs, said I was crazy. Well, all those shrinks wanted to question me. So what happened was I was with Jesse Stevens. We went into a Circle K down in Bonner. We left. We bought a 6-pack of beer, and we bought some bread, and we left. Well, Jesse went back with a gun, and he held her up. He held the clerk up. She identified me and Jesse. Well, they arrested him. They got me, took me to court, and they told me I couldn't testify because I was mentally incompetent. In Warm Springs, they gave me testing, these psychiatrists. This is what they came. I carry this everywhere to show you the power of the Lord. They said I had the adjustment reaction of an adolescent. I had an inadequate personality. I did episodic excessive drinking. Borderline mental retardation. Non-psychotic organic brain syndrome, whatever the hell that means. And the medical staff said I was incapable of understanding the charges against me in that holdup, which I wasn't part of. They dropped the case. Years later, after my wife was killed, I continued to preach and to give people the word and tell them about what saved me. And I died in 2003. But my legacy is I was a street preacher here in Missoula, and I changed. I became a different person. I gave a lot of my money away. I helped people. The Lord had saved me.
My name was Julia Burke Lachelle, and I was married to John Henry Lachelle, right here. And I never thought I would see this bugger ever again. But I guess I could tell you the story of how he met his end. For at least 20 years, we lived in Lothrop, which is next to Alberton. And Lothrop was a lumbering town that Jack and I raised. Yeah. Back in the day, Reservoir Creek was renamed Lachelle Creek. And Jack and I involved ourselves in the activities and duties of Lothrop. And because as the town began to grow even more, John was the honorable mayor. And he also was one of the widely known Coeur d'Alenes. I was the postmaster of Lothrop between 1900 and 1902. Jack was also the constable of Lothrop between 1902 to 1906. He also was a great fancier of pigeons, and some of them were trained to do stunts. Yeah, and in this article right here in the Missoulian, September 26, 1905, it talks about Jack training pigeons to do stunts. Here's an interesting thing. I like to talk about this. So, to travel into Missoula that we wanted to do, we rode the train that the locals called Snake Flyer. And Snake Flyer traveled between Missoula to Mullen, Idaho. Snake Flyer. So, you know, Jack was not quarrelsome when he was sober. But he became an alcoholic about 9 years before his death. At times, he would be crazed from the effects of liquor. He would be such a dangerous man. I had the worst trouble with Jack on a Friday afternoon, January 28, 1910. This nightmare started with a quarrel about money that he wanted me to give him. I told him that he only wanted to take it down to drink it. I only wanted to give him $5, but he said that was not enough, so I gave him $10. So he left the house to go back to the saloon. Then he returned home about 3 hours later after supper, and then he threatened to kill our 11-year-old son, Paul. And here is a picture of Paul right next to his big sister. This was Paul when he was 11 years old, and he threatened to kill Paul. Here is a picture of Paul when he was 21 years old. He was very handsome, very healthy, alive after he was 11 years old. There. Okay. So, when he threatened to kill Paul, then I hit Jack on the left side of his head with a round reddish bottle, and I cut up his ear. So, at that point, I sent our 14-year-old son, Edwin Patrick, right here, to the saloon to ask the saloon keeper, whose name at the time was Ole Burksett, to come to our home to take Jack out of the house because he was running around the dining room with an axe. And at that point, our daughter Harriet, who's right there at the top in the center, was the only family member in the house with her father at that time. So Mr. Berkset came to our home, and I asked him to go into the house to take Jack out of the house. And he looked at me and he said, "I don't want to do that." And then a few minutes later, he changed his mind, and he went into the house, and he took Jack out of the house, took the axe away from Jack, and took Jack back to the saloon. So before he took Jack away from us, Jack stated that when I was asleep, he was going to drag Paul into the river. He also threatened to strangle Paul, and he also threatened to strangle me. When Jack came back home after Mr. Berkset took him back to the saloon, Jack threatened to chop all 6 of our children and threatened to chop me with a double-bit axe. Before Jack got back to our home while he was gone with Mr. Berkset, I nailed the front door shut so he wouldn't be able to enter our home. But when he arrived back home, he chopped the front door open with a different axe. And I yelled at him to not chop the front door. But he ignored me. Then I ran into the bedroom to grab a cleaver that was under the bed, but I couldn't reach it because it was too far under the bed. Then I saw the little boy's gun, which was a .22 caliber Winchester rifle. I grabbed that rifle and I shot Jack in his forehead, with blood oozing out, and his brain matter was also oozing out. This event took place on January 29th, 1910. It was a Saturday night, 9:00 p.m. The next day, Jack died from his injuries at 12:00 in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon. At the time of his death, John was only 55 years old. We had been married for 26 years. And at the time of John's death, our children's ages were between 3 to 17 years old. And that's how he treated his family, even when they were 3. So Jack was a member of the Missoula Eagles. So for Jack's funeral, the Eagles held services, and the local lodge of Eagles was in charge of the funeral services. The Missoula band headed the funeral procession as the Eagles escorted Jack's dead body right here at 2:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday, February 1st, 1910. Jack's death was clearly a case of self-defense. The coroner did not consider it necessary to take harsh steps in arresting me for killing Jack. It was my job to always protect my children from any danger they were forced into. And the jury stated I was acting in self-defense, and they exonerated me from all blame. When Jack was at the saloon, he bragged about planning to chop us up when he would leave the saloon to come back home. So, Many people knew that this was happening, so I had much defense. My children and I stayed in Lothrop, and 3 years after I killed Jack, I remarried a man named Conrad Brown. I died on September 29th, 1934, and I was laid to rest on a hill in Lothrop. And my gravesite has a white cross that says Julia Burke Lachelle. And there's a picture of my gravesite right here. This is on a hill, a white cross, and it does not say my second husband's name. It says Julia Burke Lachelle. And my children, as they grew up as adults, they all left Montana and moved to different states. So Jack is the only family member who is buried here in the city cemetery. So thank you for letting me tell my story about my family. Thank you. Thank you very much.